And does Fed Chair Jay Powell have anything to be concerned about? Does he have cause for legal concern here?
Oh, it's definitely pushing the tensions between the White House and Fed to the next level, no doubt about it. You know, as you well know, it's unprecedented, potentially, on paper at least, suggesting potential criminal charges against Federal Reserve economic policymakers, if not the chair himself. So lots of unknowns about all of this. At the very least, it does speak to the idea, and this is what a lot of Fed watchers today are saying, speaks to the idea that, you know, President Trump really is deadly serious now about casting his imprint, remolding the Fed in his worldview as much as possible, and that involves piling pressure on Chair Powell to leave the Fed when his term of chair is up in May, because one of the subplots of all of this is that while his term as chair is up in May, Mr. Powell can remain on the board until early 2028. And the thinking is if he stays on the board, then he might remain, continue to defend the Fed's independence against the White House and push back. And obviously that doesn't suit the White House agenda. So that's why people are saying there's this pressure being put on him right here, right now. But it's unprecedented, a lot of unknowns around how this plays out. And certainly it sets up a very protracted few months ahead.
What kind of response do you expect from Congress or the Treasury in terms of making an official response here?
Well, we've had a very interesting intervention, as you mentioned a moment ago, from Senator Tillis. His is especially interesting because he's on the committee responsible for confirming the next Fed chair. That committee is very finely balanced, 13-11. He's come out and said that, look, I'm not going to vote for anyone until this legal issue is sorted out. And that suggests that no matter who the Trump administration nominates to be Fed chair over the coming weeks and months, as long as this legal issue plays out, well, then they're going to struggle to get it through the Senate committee for approval. And then you're in a scenario, if you step back from that, you kind of go, hang on the one hand, you've got the Fed locked in this legal battle with the administration, question marks over current chair Jerome Powell's future. And on the other side, on a parallel track, it's going to be possible that a Fed chair may not be confirmed, a new Fed chair may not be confirmed, or at the very least it'll be a very protracted and ugly process running alongside in tandem. So this is where things start to get very complicated and very uncertain in terms of how all of this plays out.
Why are we seeing more of a market reaction? And if indeed the Fed's independence is being threatened right now, why aren't we seeing markets react?
Tough to say. I mean, markets really have been brushing off a lot of major world events, of course, in recent times as well. But, a benign take is that this is such an escalation that some people out there believe there has to be an off-ramp. There's a view out there that this was kind of uncoordinated from the administration. President Trump himself said he didn't know about it to NBC last night, and maybe they look for kind of a way to de-escalate it. But there are plenty of those who tell you that's not really going to be the scenario, because President Trump, again, has previously warned he was considering a lawsuit against Chair Powell. We know he's deadly serious about his pressure on the Fed, and that side of things kind of tell you this could be more of a slow burn market effect. Not a big bang, gee whiz, look, pressure on the Fed, but over time they start to lose confidence, start to see that independence being corroded, and then by extension that goes into portfolio decisions, and you start to see it in securities prices. So I think the slower burn, longer term play out is the kind of camp that's, I think, winning that debate at the moment.
Well, there was a note from Wells Fargo earlier this morning saying markets are on alert but seem to be waiting for kind of like what you said, tangible action. And the analyst noted that the Supreme Court ruling that the Trump admin can fire Lisa Cook would qualify as that tangible action. I'm wondering if we can learn anything from just the events that have unfolded today about how the Supreme Court is going to rule on Cook.
Yeah, tricky to say. Again, a lot of tempting parallels between both, but we don't yet know. I mean, those hearings haven't even been heard yet. We don't know what kind of stance the Supreme Court will take on the Governor Lisa Cook case. And even if they do issue a ruling, let's just say broadly favourable towards Ms. Cook and the Fed, well, a lot of questions will be around, well, what kind of ruling what are the details of that ruling? I mean, is it a near-term reprieve, and does it set it up for the White House to come back for another swing by following a kind of a roadmap that the Supreme Court sets up? Or does the Supreme Court really knock that whole idea out of the park altogether, in which case, to your point, it will be seen as a resounding victory for Fed autonomy from this kind of interference. But we don't know. But what we do know is that we have now a situation where the Fed is at the whim of the courts in a way it hasn't been before. You've got the Lisa Cook case, you have potential for criminal charges against maybe Chair Powell, others at the Fed over the building renovation. No one knows how this is going to play out, other than it certainly has a long way to go and will likely have many more unexpected twists before it does conclude.
And I think it also makes the next Fed chair's job incredibly challenging. The front runner certainly has been, as widely reported, has been Kevin Hassett. The president has said that he has made up his mind. He told the New York Times that last week. But what are the challenges that the next Fed chair faces apart from the dual mandate, stable prices and maximum employment?
Yes, I mean, it's kind of getting to a point where the economy feels almost secondary to this legal and political debate that's surrounding the Fed. But let's just say the next Fed chair does get confirmed. It looks like it'll be an awkward process now, but let's just say they get confirmed at some point over the months ahead. Well, whoever that is, when he or she comes into the office, really will have to double down and prove to fellow Fed policymakers and the investor community and the rest of course, the economy, that their number one interests are putting the economy first, that they're dedicated to serving the Fed and the people and the broader economy. Now, whoever comes in as an appointee of Trump was always going to have to work hard to prove that they're not just beholden to the Trump White House, that they're not just beholden to politics. That was always going to be a challenge. But whoever does come in after this latest development is really going to have to double down and work hard to gain that trust and confidence from markets, or they will be literally an agent of the White House and will be seen to be doing the White House bidding. So I think in terms of optics of all of this, that will be a challenge for whoever takes over.